Outlaws.
Hello, episode 67 of Middle Aged Outlaws podcast. Adam, how the hell are you?
Yeah, I'm doing quite good. I'm doing a lot better, I think, than I probably was the last time we did this.
COVID infested, perhaps, the last time, I think.
Yeah, so, yeah, a lot better now. Yeah, how are you?
Good, I'm alright, thanks. We have reached 1997 in our crazy journey through all of these Halloween Havocs. And 1987 brings us to quite an interesting time in professional wrestling. We're pretty much at the boom period now, where WCW will be in the midst of their famous 83 weeks of overtaking the WWF in the viewing and the ratings, TV ratings. We will have had the very famous very first Hell in a Cell match between Shawn Michaels and Undertaker.
Yeah.
We are mere weeks out from arguably the most controversial thing certainly to happen in ring and wrestling related in the wrestling business, the Montreal Screwjob, of course. And we're just off Brian Pillman having passed away as well. So there's been a lot going on round about this time that we've just recently watched with Halloween Havoc 1997. If you were an alien and I gave you 5 pay-per-views to watch, I don't know which ones, let me think. Say I gave you this one. I gave you WrestleMania 17, WrestleMania 3. I'm now struggling with the point I'm trying to make. WrestleMania 30. And maybe let's take a Starrcade 89 or something like that, right? And I showed you them all. Do you think you would pinpoint this one and say this is the time when this business was its biggest in pop culture? Certainly.
No, I feel like I would probably think it was at or nearest lowest.
Yeah.
It's not like. You don't hear that you're right now in the middle of the 83 weeks, watch this show and think that makes sense. You kind of are wondering how it's so over.
Yeah. This you don't watch this and think this is a company where everybody's performing at their peak of their powers. Nobody can do any wrong, anything like that. It's really curious. It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird.
And probably WCW hit, and we know this from experience, having watched a lot of their pay-per-views in 1998. It would be fair to say that they hit momentum, and they're basically sliding down the hill now using that momentum.
Yeah. I don't think they're doing anything to build on what has happened. They've tried, I think, to just keep the same thing going for as long as they possibly could. And it's had a period where it's worked really well, and it feels like it's fallen off a cliff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's like, this is what brought us to the dance, so let's just keep on doing it and keep on doing it, and we'll build on top of it. To the point where they're talking about having like Nitro, full Nitro episodes with just NWO in it, and it's not long after. Was the first sold out? Was that 98 that they did the full NWO pay-per-view?
I think it might have been, yeah. Like they had. Did they have even like an NWO commentary team? I think
so.
On that. Yeah, it was like a proper full NWO show test run, I think.
Amazing. Amazing to think of.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into this pay-per-view, but first we've got a little film to talk about first, which we've watched from the year 1997. It's framed as a horror. I didn't get horror from it. More thriller, almost a sci-fi thriller-ish.
Yeah. I
It's
suppose there's a lot of like psychological trauma on the go.
yeah. We can take that. This is 1987's Cube. This was your second view, and you thought you'd maybe watched it years ago.
Yeah, very long time ago. Yeah.
I'd never seen it before. I certainly enjoyed it. I'll give the synopsis if I've got it here. Yep. A group of strangers awaken to find themselves placed in a giant cube. Each one of them is gifted with a special skill, and they must work together to escape an endless maze of deadly traps. Normally, we like to say who stars in these films, but this is a cast of relative unknowns. I believe it's a sort of a mostly Canadian cast.
Okay.
With, like I say, relative unknowns. How did you enjoy Cube on the second viewing?
I enjoyed it. I couldn't remember it all that well. I remembered the basic idea, but I couldn't, like, basically as soon as I saw them where they were, which was basically in their first room, and then remembering that they kind of have to find a way of navigating through the rooms to try and get themselves out. I couldn't really remember how or where the story went, other than that was the basic idea behind it. I kept thinking that this must have influenced quite a lot of films. Like the first one that leapt to my mind was Saw, because it's different, but they've taken something from this.
There's definitely sort of sadistic torture elements to it.
Yeah. And as they were, like, I couldn't remember who got killed off when or anything like that, so it kind of felt like a first viewing, just remembering the basic story behind it. I didn't think the acting was brilliant, and at times almost risked taking me out of it a little bit, but I thought the story was really good, and I felt like it's really claustrophobic, because these rooms are not massive rooms that they're in, and you don't quite early on, you don't know how many rooms there are. You don't know how they're going to possibly figure out how to get out of there. But I felt a few times, like, as I was being really pulled into it and thinking, like, what are they going to do? I was like, oh, look at Quentin's acting. Okay, it's fine. It's a film. It's okay. Because he wasn't the best at, like, it was very over the top, but with everything. Like, whether he was, because he starts to, like, psychologically break down, as a few of them do in different ways, but he's so massively, like, bulging eye aggression. It was a bit much at times.
And then towards the end of it, he becomes over the top, almost Disney-esque villain and snarling, sort of horrible character. I did appreciate how, as they went through it, they through the length of time that went on, they'd obviously not had any access to food or water or anything like that. I did appreciate how their mood changed, and their lack of patience with each other began to just wear really, really thin. I really liked that. It was quite subtle, almost, apart from with your Quentin character.
And they did start, building. You talk about the fact they've got skills or specific skills. They build that quite gradually, because you're only getting fed little bits and pieces of information as you go. Like, it becomes clear quite early on that there's like a brilliant mathematician in there, and that comes into play, and you find out that is it Worth? Is that the guy's name? That he was actually involved in the development of the outer shell of the structure, without knowing what he was involved in the creation of. And they're just adding these little elements as you're going to sort of bring together a story behind all that. So I did enjoy it. I enjoyed those elements, and much as the overacting by Quentin at times took me out of it, I quite enjoyed, like, there's a moment where he could save the doctor. She has tried to propel herself over to the other side of a gaping sort of chasm within there, and he basically is holding her from dropping this what looks like an endless distance, and just like the look in his eyes as he just decides, nah,
You're going.
I'm not going to save her. I'm going to let her go, and nobody else can see it. Nobody else, none of the other characters can see him making that decision to let her go and plummet to her death. So I thought there were lots of good little sort of personal stories between the groups. I enjoyed the film.
Nice. Yeah, me too. I quite enjoy it. It felt almost like that could be a Black Mirror idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The whole premise of it, and this was 1987. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing to think that I believe there was maybe 2 or 3 sequels made,
Okay.
but nothing up to the same sort of level as this one. It feels like something that they would take and make a Netflix TV show out of, or something like that these days.
Yeah. Nice.
Feels right for that. Anyway, aye, that was Cube. I don't have any trivia about it, apart from I do have one piece actually. It was shot in. They had one cube, and they just changed the colours in the one cube as they were filming it, and it was shot in 21 days.
Okay.
Quite impressive.
There was a bit right at the end that made me remember. There's a friend of mine who's not a wrestling fan, but he did love this film to the extent that he has an email address that is boundless human stupidity at, it's either Hotmail or whatever it is, which is the phrase Worth says just towards the end as he is trying to make a decision about whether he actually wants to leave.
Right, okay, aye.
I always forget that's where I get emails from all the time. I always forget that's where his email address comes from.
Brilliant. Well, if you've seen Cube and you like Cube, or if you dislike it, feel free to email him and tell him your views on the film. Let's talk Halloween Havoc. Here we are, 1987. At one point during my note writing as I was watching this, I think I just wrote, I am so fed up with WCW. I watched this in 2 parts, and the first part that I watched it in, I was in quite a bad mood, and I don't think it helped. The second part I watched today, and I've been in better mood today, and I thoroughly enjoyed what I watched today, so maybe it's not as bad as what I was actually thinking, and maybe I was just in a bad mood. You often look at these things from a certain point of view, so it'll be interesting to see your views against my grumpy views.
I'll just say I was on leave from work for a few days because I had a birthday, and I'm a child, so I refused to work on my birthday. So I took a few days off. So I was actually in a good mood. And I think you'll find that a lot of what you thought was
spot on. Okay. Yeah. You did not watch this on your birthday, though.
I didn't. When I knew what the card was, I just couldn't face it, so I watched it the day after.
Did you have a birthday film?
I don't think so. See,
man.
I've got like the new Madden, and I found myself just playing loads of Xbox through the day.
Ideal.
Yeah.
And how are the Texans on Madden? Realistic?
Not as good as they should be.
Not as good as real life.
The quarterback should be better. That's all I'll say. But he will be in the next one. He'll be, once they update the stats, he'll be awesome. But no, I think we'd had a chilled out day, and I remember like we got home and you get those channels that have like basically for months of the year they have the sort of TV movie Christmas films.
Yeah, the Hallmark ones.
Yeah, that's what we put on, and there's something a bit comforting about just thinking I can tell within the first 5 minutes of this film exactly what's going to happen, and then you can just sort of switch off from it. But depressingly, that's the only one of those is the only film I remember watching on my birthday.
That says middle-aged outlaw.
Oh yeah,
watching a Hallmark movie on your birthday.
Crushing being middle-aged.
Okay, Halloween Havoc, 1997. No grand video entrance or anything like that. I think we got quite a brief. Some pictures of Hogan and Piper And immediately brought us back to the end of Halloween Havoc 96 as we were both fucking hate Roddy Piper.
I couldn't believe, like, he's been there a year.
I think he's had very sporadic appearances, though.
Yeah, it's probably like match 3 or 4 or something for him. Yeah. But I mean, move on. Like it could have just been a one and done, and then you move Hogan away from Piper.
It's just holding the title hostage as well. It's crazy. Like this could be a special attraction type stuff, and like you see like Guerrero on this card, and you're like, they could have taken some chances. He looked amazing on this.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's a fantasy booking journey if ever there was one. So we have got Shivani, Brain, and Dusty again. So disappointed to see Dusty again. He wasn't quite as bad, but that's probably because he spoke a lot less.
Yeah.
Apart from when Jacqueline was wrestling.
Do you think there's somebody like muting his mic every now and then, just being like, it's fine, he thinks he's talking, that's okay.
There's a great bit where he asked Shivani a question and Shivani didn't answer, and he goes, and you just hear Dusty going, hello? And Shivani goes, I'm still here, Dusty. If I don't answer you, it just means I'm ignoring you or something like that. Okay. Match number 1. We kick off with Yuji Nagata with his manager, Sonny Ono, taking on Ultimo Dragon. We're clearly in the WCW Cruiserweight era. Mm-hmm. Smack bang into, I can't remember if we have some luchadors or Japanese wrestlers the last pay-per-view.
Was Mysterio on the last one?
Yes, it was Fit Malenko. I don't remember many others though.
No, I know there were various points in time as well where they did like talent exchanges and talent sharing. So I'd wondered when I saw this on the card if this was that situation on the go. They weren't. I'm sure I've heard the name Ultimo Dragon, but they weren't guys I was familiar with going into it.
I'm sure Ultimo Dragon's is Ultimo Dragon a WWF Hall of Famer? I think he possibly is. Okay. I might be talking about backside. Yuji Nagata's a big man. He's a big boy. I liked him.
Yeah. So they were telling a story about it. It sounded like Sonny Ono had tried to recruit Ultimo Dragon to his stable, and he had been turned down, and this seemed to be like a revenge situation that he had brought in what they were sort of portraying as like a hired gun in Nagata to take him out and get revenge for Sonny Ono.
My issue with this match, and we're going straight into the issues apparently, but my issue with this match is if this was supposed to be a heater to get the crowd on their feet, then somebody should have told Yuji Nagata, because his main move seemed to be a sleeper.
Yeah.
I didn't massively love it. Highlights from this included Raven's flock making their way down through the crowd at one point. This, what we're going to get. A lot of Hurricane Ranas from Ultimo Dragon. He's eventually tries to get him into the Dragon Sleeper. It's no good match, really, is it?
Nah, there's a few moves that look okay. I was never pulled into the story or invested in the match. I was just kind of, it's going to sound harsh, I was just kind of waiting for it to finish and
pass some time. Yeah, that's fair. I do have a note here that I never ever want to see a cartwheel in a wrestling ring. It annoys me. I don't know why. That big lad for the Viking Raiders does it as well. There's no place for a cartwheel in the wrestling ring.
Yeah.
Sonny, who gets the win? The big lad, Nagata. Nagata gets the win.
Yeah,
it's an armbar.
It's an armbar, and I think they'd been talking about the arm and an attack on the arm and things like that. There'd been some bits and pieces by Sonny Ono getting involved. I think he submitted really quickly in the armbar.
Yeah, and then Sonny Ono takes a wee shot at him, gives him a wee kick.
Yeah, there was a wee 2-on-1 attack after continuing the attack on the arm.
So after that we go backstage. We've got the Disco Inferno I believe he's at the... Is he at the backstage bit, or is he at the internet bit that I think that they describe it? Let's go back to our internet area.
Yeah.
I think he's there.
I think it's yeah. I've got a few notes. I don't have where he particularly was, because I'd heard a story about this, because I knew that he had been fired for refusing to put over Jacqueline in a match.
Seriously?
Yeah. Now, he ended up coming back, and he was brought back on the understanding that one of the very early things he would have to do is put over Jacqueline.
That's
in a match.
amazing.
I don't know if he went and tested the waters and found out if WWE would be on the phone to him, and maybe find out they weren't, and thought, okay, I better go and do this job, I guess.
I mean, in 1997, if you can't get a job with WWF, then you're probably doing something wrong, because their undercard's absolutely stinking. He's so corny. I've zero time for Disco Inferno. Even these days, he tries to be one of these talking head podcasters, and he just talks at his backside. Yeah,
I see quotes at times. I don't watch much wrestling, but there's a couple of websites I go on that give you an overview of what's going on and that kind of thing. And I'll quite often see Disco Inferno tears into it, but I just all right.
Who gives a shit?
Who cares? I don't know, Jamie O'Hara talking about football or something like that.
There you go, that's exactly what it's like. So Disco guarantees that he will win. Jackie breaks it up. She seems very angry that the internet people aren't interviewing her rather than him.
Yeah,
and
right.
Dusty is very amused by this. He seems to be talking about somebody's big old butt going flying, but I think I think he's talking about the interviewer. Dusty, good stuff. Match 2 is a special unadvertised match. I bet you were excited when you realised you were getting an extra bonus match on top of the card that we were getting.
I was definitely quite happy when I saw certainly one of the participants that was going to be in the special unadvertised match.
Yeah, big Ghetto Man.
He wasn't somebody I was all that familiar with, but I'm always happy to see Jericho.
At one point we see a member of Raven's Flock. Is that Stevie Richards? That's with Raven's Flock?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it?
I think it was.
I don't remember him being WCW, do you?
He was. He definitely was, and then I think back to ECW.
Right. So this is Gedo versus Chris Jericho, and WWF going too over the top with the Break the Walls Down music dubbed in over the top of Jericho's.
Yeah.
Silly.
I did like the Hogan Fears Jericho sign in the crowd.
Nice.
Though. There's this one guy in the crowd that's desperately trying to get WCW to put these two on the same level, even if nobody's listening.
Class. It seems that these two seem to be tag partners at some point, possibly in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
We have Mike Tenay. He came in, they rolled him out for that first match, and he's staying for this one and the next one. So I'll come back to Mike Tenay. I've got a question for you about him.
Okay.
This match did the thing that you and I have picked up on before that we find quite frustrating when you're watching a pay-per-view. Loads of the same moves as the last match.
Yeah.
Almost like for like a lot of the time, some of the phases of things.
Mm-hmm. I always wonder, because certainly these days, each match has a producer or whatever they refer to it as, somebody that helps lay out the match with the performers and all that. And I kind of assume part of their job nowadays is maybe to communicate with the other producers, be like, okay, what's going on in that match? Okay, we'll take this out, we'll do this instead, that kind of thing. But here, I assume that kind of thing wasn't happening. It was just a figure it out, go and do your match. That's it.
Yeah, it's a funny thing to see. The big thing from this match is the horrible attempt at a Super Hurricane Rana from the top rope by Jericho that goes all kinds of wrong.
If I'm watching that on TV now as happening, I'm assuming that guy is not going to get up. Now, I know Chris Jericho is still having his career to this day, which is the thing that made me think when he basically landed on top of his head, that made me think he's going to be okay, because I know he is. but that looked horrendous.
Yeah. Oh, really bad. Really
That
bad.
must be like a couple inches away from being paralysed.
Broken neck, yep.
Yeah. Oh,
it's horrible. It's one I've never seen before, and normally,
No.
you see these sort of things,
Uh-huh.
like the Vader eyeball or the Sid coming off the ropes thing, and oh no, I know, I'm sorry.
I couldn't tell what had gone wrong, whether it was supposed to be blocked or one of them, Jericho, thought he was blocking it, and then I couldn't. Something went wrong or seemed to go wrong just in the mechanics of the move.
Yeah.
But,
It's horrible. And from then on, it looked like Jericho's maybe, and quite understandably, on another planet a little bit.
Yeah.
I think even Dusty mentioned it. What have we got off? Basically, it goes from that. They sort of try and help him get his bearings by going out onto the outside for a little bit. Gedo climbs up the top rope, does a flying nothing, and Jericho slaps on the lion tamer. And that was it. Pretty much. Jericho gets the win. But yeah, close shave, I think.
Yeah, that was it came off as soon as it had happened. It was the only thing I remembered about the match. As soon as it had happened, I was like, yeah, that's what's going to stick in my mind.
Disgusting. And to think that Jericho still does that move, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go backstage. Mean Gene's back. Where's that guy with the amazing voice from last year?
Yeah, your guy. He's gone. One and done.
I guess like some sort of talk radio, some person with fat pockets has snapped him up. So Mean Gene is backstage with Deborah McMichael. I think we seem to be in a situation where she's bringing a mystery opponent to take on her husband. They seem to be estranged from each other. So she's getting interviewed by Mean Gene, and Mongo comes in like an angry man coming in for the pub in one of those like 1980s adverts where he's like asking where his dinner is. He's like so angry.
It's such a weird dynamic because at the start I'm thinking we are supposed to fully believe Deborah McMichael is a dick. She is sounding like she's just a gold digger. She's out for whatever she can get, all that. But then he comes in. I don't know. I just ended up thinking, they're perfect for each other. Just leave them to it.
So he starts going off and he's going mental. And she says, you're not very attractive when you're foaming at the mouth, which I liked. That was great. What else? Oh, he's saying, I'll take back the diamond rings and the credit cards, the Rolex. Mean Gene perks up at that. He's like, the Rolex! And then Mean Gene just... He says pretty much exactly what you've said there. He's like, what does he say? Sounds like something that should be settled in a court of law, perhaps, not here or in the ring. And it's like, cool, let's just take that match off the card then.
Yeah, just do it, Gene. You've got the power.
Okay, match number 3. This was a good one. So this was for the Cruiserweight title. We had Rey Mysterio in his the Phantom... Billy Zane, the Phantom purple all-in-one suit, taking on the champion Eddie Guerrero. What can you say? What can you say about this?
I loved this. Like we've definitely seen some maybe later matches that, in hindsight, watching them between the two, didn't quite measure up. This, I think, is the one. This is. It's a brilliant match. You've got. I think I forget because it's not current and he obviously hasn't been around for a while. But the facial expressions Eddie Guerrero brings to the table are absolutely brilliant. Obviously, they've both got a really good moveset. Eddie Guerrero's allowed to be the bigger guy, the more powerful guy.
Yeah.
Mysterio is going to bump and going to run around and jump around, but it just works. They connect, and it doesn't. There were a couple of times where I thought that move, whatever move they had just done, could have looked too choreographed, but it didn't. It just worked.
Yes.
And I absolutely loved this. Some of the moves, there was a springboard DDT, which I loved.
Like a backflip into a DDT. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And it's that kind of stuff where maybe now, like I try to, it's difficult to put yourself in the mindset of then, because, now you see a lot more high risk, high flying moves and things like that than you maybe were used to at that point. But they're doing them so well. To get them to look so smooth but not choreographed, that's a skill, and I don't quite know how they did it.
Yeah, I think there's also something about the way that Mysterio does these. It's mainly Mysterio does these moves that it feels like there's a purpose for them rather than him doing cool shit.
Yeah.
And part of that's the size difference, I think. But at one point he does like a springboard. What does he do? He does like a springboard off the top rope, forward flip into a Hurricane Rana on the outside, and it's just all like so fast. Oh, it's brilliant! So good.
And they're giving us bits of story. So this is title against Mask, I think.
Yes, that's right. Match. Yeah.
And basically, if Rey loses, he's got to lose his mask. I think Rey comes out with the mask he's got on and another mask. I think he's got another mask.
He does.
Tied round him. Eddie, the aggressiveness at which he's ripping at the mask at times during the match, I loved. And they give some, whether this is true, it may very well be, but they're giving some backstory about Guerrero. Basically, when they tell the story about if you lose your mask, if you're a luchador and you lose your mask, there's kind of no way back from it. Your career may continue, but you're going to have lost that aura and that mystique. And they talk about Guerrero having voluntarily taken off his mask and given it up. And I was like, I enjoyed the stories. I enjoyed the layers they were given. I was totally in on this.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to speak to you about Mike Tenay, because normally they sort of wheel him out for these cruiserweight type matches, and he's got a lot of knowledge. But I've never really appreciated him until this pay-per-view. I thought a lot of the factual and background information that he was bringing about the history of some of these wrestlers. He was talking about Mysterio wrestling as a different name, Hummingbird or something like that. He was talking about Guerrero, and he was talking about him being feeling like he'd been in his tag team partner was a masked luchador who'd got more of the spotlight from him. I thought I really appreciated him, actually, which is quite unlike me, because I find him quite annoying. And I just wondered how you felt about him.
Yeah, I think if he's going to be on a show, I probably do prefer him just being there at times rather than on every match. I don't think he's going to bring something to a Hulk Hogan Roddy Piper match. I think that's not what he's there for. I think given these bits and pieces of story, as I say, this really worked for me. Just hearing these bits of information, just given more reason for this to be as intense as it was. I enjoyed it. I listened. Did you ever watch TNA? Because he was the lead announcer for TNA for a while.
So not much, but I started watching their early pay-per-views, and I remember noticing that he was like your main colour commentator.
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure. Like, if I'm starting a promotion, I don't think I put him in that role. But I think in a role like this, where he's brought in for specific situations, I think he can add to it.
Imagine a Brian Pillman versus like a Rey Mysterio versus Brian Pillman. You put JR and Tenay on commentary, and they're just shouting over each other about backgrounds and nose tackles and hummingbirds. It's just noise.
Amazing.
There's a good bit. Brain goes, Mike, tell me what you don't know. Is there anything you don't know?
Awesome.
There's not much you can say about this match, or you can almost say too much. There's just so much going on. It's like you've said before. The storytelling's really good. I was like blown away by Eddie Guerrero. I thought 97's probably too early for him to be this character. He's got so much character to him. He looks amazing. He's in ring is like aggressive. He's thrown Mysterio about like he means it. Yeah, I thought it was amazing. So good.
Yeah. I think you quite often hear, I think Bruce Pritchard's one that said it quite a lot, that he viewed Guerrero as like a Latino Shawn Michaels. That's how he viewed him. And I think, people that have maybe only seen a few matches here and there maybe think, hey, what? But I think if you see a match like this, it's a totally different type of performer, but I think I get it in terms of just the level that he's showing here. I mean, if you're WWE at the time, I think it makes sense that you look and say, we want to get that guy at some point.
Definitely.
Because we can really make something of him, which obviously they did.
It's amazing to think Disco Inferno's a champion, I think he's TV champion here.
Yeah.
Who had the United States? Was it Kurt Hennig or Flair? One of the two. You can't really grumble there. But you've got Hogan holding up the title, and it could potentially be a special attraction. And Benoit was nowhere to be seen on this pay-per-view. Obviously, we've got Jericho, but I would say based on this pay-per-view, Guerrero's like head and shoulders above Jericho from a character and standpoint. And he's over massively. Big Eddie sucks chants. Nobody's sitting on their hands here. Like, they're loving it.
Yeah.
And I think we come out the end of the match with both guys a lot more elevated than what they were. But, before coming in, and that's what more can you ask for?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's because the finish, I think, is Eddie's trying to get him up in like a razor's edge type move off the top, and Guerrero sort of turned. It's almost like a sunset flip that he brings him down for the 3, but it's quite quick, and you're left thinking there's nothing in it. Again, you've elevated both. You can go again. There's absolutely no reason for these two not to be able to go again. Enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
And Eddie, of course, attacks him almost immediately afterwards. And you mentioned it as well, that Eddie had been scratching and scraping at his mask, half the masks, hanging off Mysterio. He comes up to the camera. Yeah, that's so good. One of the best matches you could see, and certainly in WCW history, I would say. That's not.
Did you check the Meltzer rating for it?
4 3/4, I think.
Okay.
Come on, Dave. Come on, Dave.
He never gave Kurt Angle a 5-star, so
What's he doing? That would have had. It'd be interesting to see where that finished in a match of the year. You've got Austin Hart that year, which I believe tops it, but there can't be many more that would.
No, great. And I think a big difference is I think it's probably safe to say, as being middle-aged outlaws, that neither of us are into too much of the acrobatic choreographed stuff. But here it works, but also there's a story. It's not just that. There's a story holding it all together, and that makes a big difference for me. If you can bring that to the table, as well as executing quite a varied moveset and quite a original for the time in that kind of arena moveset. Yeah, I just thought it was great.
Aye. I was going to say I think that the storyline, along with how they told the story about Luchador and what it means to lose a mask, like, it gives justification for some of the stuff that Mysterio's pulling out. And Eddie's just a bad man. Like, he just wants to hurt him.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, top of the aisle, with Mean Gene. He's plugging that hotline like there's no tomorrow. We then jump to the low light, and that says a lot, but we then go to the low light of this pay-per-view. We're in a black and white locker room with Hogan and Bischoff. Bischoff is touching Hogan's biceps for some reason.
It's weird.
Bischoff clearly trying to get... He keeps talking about the Turner suits. I can imagine that he is like giving himself wee cheapskate saying that sort of stuff about Turner suits.
Yeah.
Hogan then goes off on a tirade of absolute babbling nonsense. He talks about it at the start. He's talking about being a god of professional wrestling. They're talking about him not going to turn up to the main event if Sting's going to be allowed in the building. But then he goes off for another good 5-6 minutes.
So long. It just kept going. And Hogan can deliver good promos. We've seen Hogan do good promos and heat-seeking promos as well from his sort of NWO peak. But I didn't come out of it thinking I know exactly what the message was supposed to be here. I was like, I just kept thinking that went on so long, and I definitely stopped listening.
Yeah, me too.
Quite early on. Yeah. So I didn't know at the time until this was mentioned. So I suppose this helps a little bit that we're obviously at the point in time where Sting is in the rafters and watching, and Hogan. That seems to be his issue, that he doesn't feel safe with knowing that Sting could be there and could appear at any point in time. But Jesus, he found a long way of saying it.
Yeah, and they're doing the whole, like, you know, the crowd aren't safe with a maniac up there, and he could come flying down and hurt your children or whatever, but God. Yeah. Okay, match 4 is Mongo McMichael, the previously mentioned Mongo McMichael, taking on a mystery opponent. It's funny. So this match is, you know that this match is stinking. It's Steve McMichael versus Der Wunderkind, Alex Wright. He was another one that had a dancing gimmick, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But the commentators do this match so dirty because they barely commentate on it. They just speak about Hogan.
Yeah.
Almost the whole time.
They did, because obviously the threat's been there that Hogan is going to not wrestle in the main event. But there were many issues I had with this. Like, Mongo McMichael should not be in a wrestling ring. Everything he does looks awful. But also, like, you're the Deborah McMichael character. She's done this promo earlier where she's talking about it's not person 1, it's not person 2.
That's
like,
a good Deborah impression, by the way.
If you're doing that build, like, surely the that is has to be somebody. They have to be, you know. Alex Wright looked like he's probably okay in the ring, but it's not like people are like, wow,
holy shit,
it's Alex Wright. Like,
Siobhan, do you remember when in 2020 Royal Rumble when was that during the COVID, or was that 2021?
2021.
There was a Royal Rumble. Yeah. There was a Royal Rumble they did in the Thunderdome, and there was nobody there.
Maybe.
And Christian came back, and he'd not wrestled for like however many years, and Michael Cole went, It's Christian. that was what Siobhan did. He was like, and it's Alex Wright. So good. Poor Deborah. That's not the reaction she was looking for. What I thought you were going to say when you were going to say Mongo shouldn't be allowed, he certainly should not be allowed to be giving out tombstones.
No. Never. Yeah. No. Like,
I've just remembered what happens at the end of this match. I'd like you to carry on with your issues with this match because it's going to be amusing.
So I don't have all that much in my notes. I've got Mongo with the pile driver, and then I've got Goldberg's here, and then he jumps in the ring, spear in the jackhammer, and then he throws Mongo to Wright for the pin, and then like I did have something like the ref seemed to be like trying so hard not to see everything that was going on behind him, and every time he half turned around he was like, oh, they're still doing it, okay, I better pretend to still be speaking to Deborah on the outside. And I don't know if it just that bit maybe went on way longer than it was supposed to, but I was feeling for the ref there because I thought he was made to look like a bloody idiot.
Yeah, he was the only one that kind of was trying. So Goldberg jumps in the ring within Mongo's line of vision. Mongo then goes out of his way to look away from where Goldberg is. So that's one. Mongo's then got his back to the referee who's arguing with Deborah, and Goldberg spears him into the ref. The ref tries not to notice as well. Jack hammers him. Deborah stopped arguing with the ref at this point. But there's still the action's still going on in the ring with Goldberg, so the ref goes to turn around, sees that it's still going on, and then has a sort of one-sided argument with himself. What an absolute mess.
I was thinking, I take it is Goldberg on this card, or is this his only...
No, this is it. Why didn't you just have Goldberg be the surprise person?
Yeah, and that's obviously, he's there. He's started, no doubt, winning matches and getting noticed, and Mongo's obviously going to be his next main opponent. It is. I think the crowd would maybe be like, oh, if they saw Goldberg come out at that moment, rather than like, it's Alex Wright.
Oh dear. I've wrote here. God, they've got the cheek to show replays of that as well. Poor ref. So yeah, who picks up the win? Alex Wright, and we see Deborah pay off Goldberg. Just pay him to have been the wrestler in the first place.
Does she give him Mongo's Super Bowl ring?
Oh, that's what she gives him, the Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Goldberg seems like the kind of guy that would still be wearing it.
Yeah.
Like now.
Oh, yeah.
Barking at people on the street. We're back in the NWO locker room with the Macho Man and Elizabeth. I like this. Macho Man's talking about being the best wrestler in the world. Not something that I can ever remember him talking about.
No. Yeah.
I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, I don't think Savage should have ever been in the NWO.
Nah, he would have been a good one to always be trying to disrupt things for them, I think.
I think he's bigger than... ridiculous as that sounds, but I feel like he's bigger than it.
Well, as soon as he's in it, he's under Hogan.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, that, I think, limits. And, certainly when he was my favourite. He was my favourite wrestler when I grew up. Not only when he was, Macho Man, winning the title in the tournament and then teaming with Hogan and all that. I still loved him when he turned heel. I thought he was brilliant when he turned heel and was Macho King, and I loved all that stuff. So yeah, I've always seen him as like a top of the card guy.
Yeah, I think even when he was a face, he had a bit of a nasty streak about him. So
there was an edge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Favorite version of Elizabeth, NWO Elizabeth or classic Elizabeth?
I'll go classic.
Oh.
I think the thing for me, and the look, I thought the look was good. I was fine with the look, but I just don't think of her as having that sort of edge about her. I thought she played being the innocent one incredibly well. I thought that was just a perfect role for her.
Okay.
You're going NWO.
Definitely. Okay, match 5. We spoke about this. Disco Inferno, who's the television champion, is taking on Jacqueline in a special man versus woman match. Apparently the WCW board were not willing to put the television championship on the line. So, yeah. Disco, we've spoke about him probably far too much already. Disco Inferno must have had one of the worst gimmicks ever. Everybody's doing his dance move, but he's supposed to be a heel.
Yeah, I've got in my notes, are the crowd into this? Because I find that insane. Because I think the crowd were singing along and stuff like that. And then Dusty pipes up with, and the way he said it made me laugh. And now we're faced with a man and a woman trying to beat each other up. And I don't know why, but it got me. Just the way he said it. It's like, obviously.
He's trying to clear it in his head of what's happening.
I was thinking, not every bit of booking Dusty did was great, but he's probably thinking, nah, I wouldn't put this on. Nah, no chance.
Class. Disco is refusing to engage pretty much. He's just running. I mean, we get a lot of this match is Disco running outside, sticking his head outside the ropes, running around the ring. Once we get down to business, Jackie, I'm sure, is regretting the attire that she's decided to wear. She has a few issues, much to Dusty's entertainment. But I think Jacqueline was quite a good woman wrestler in the territories.
Yeah, I think she was
Smoky Mountain
highly.
as well.
I think she was highly thought of. I think part of the reason they ended up bringing her in and establishing her for quite a while in WWF was to try and help the other women wrestle in ring. So obviously they'd kind of gone for the look ahead of the talent in a lot of situations. But I think she was well respected. I'm not a Disco Inferno fan. I hated this match. I don't think it should be on a pay-per-view, but if you put this on TV, I didn't hate the way his character handled it, because you're in a no-win situation and there's nothing. What can you realistically do? And I thought, what would, if you take this sort of professional, fighter or entertainer out of it, what would a person do in that scenario? And it's maybe not that far off. It's just, I just want to stay away from this. But in every move he did, he was he'd start it normally and then do it quite gently, and then like back away from it. But yeah, I don't ever want to see stuff like this on pay-per-view. Why is it here?
You say a lot about WCW and WWF, to be fair.
Someone paid to watch this. Many people.
I think the crowd were quite into it, to be fair.
Yeah.
This seems like something they would do with The Miz.
Yeah, probably.
But he would probably win. He would cheat and roll them up and win.
Yeah. That's bound to have happened.
Eventually, Jackie gets a few moves in. Nice suplex, nice DDT, and she eventually gets a roll up and beats the Disco Inferno. And do you think that this was some sort of punishment? Is that what you seem to be suggesting?
I don't know what the circumstances were when he was first, obviously, initially asked to do it, but it sounded like that is what caused him to leave. And then, it basically did read like, you can come back as long as you do what it sounded like we asked you to do in the first place.
Do the job.
Yeah.
Brilliant. The commentators are getting themselves very worked up. I feel like they're overselling the fact. We all know that Hogan is going to fight in the main event. However, they're very much getting worked up about the fact. How could he possibly? Heenan. The best about it is Heenan, because he's always been like this. He's been like this his whole career. He's cheated his way at titles and all that. It's just like, this is an opportunity for him to tell people once again how much of a dick Hulk Hogan is.
Yeah, I've always said, a key to this when you're acting like a heel is to believe that you're right, and he 100% believes that Hogan is this guy.
It's class. Okay. Next match is Kurt Hennig versus Ric Flair for the US Championship. I wasn't 100% clear who was the champion here. Certainly,
I think it's Hennig.
Is he? He stole Flair's robe. I wasn't entirely sure if he'd stole his title as well, but I think you're right.
I think he's champion. Yeah.
This sounds like a bit of a dream match on paper. Did these two ever do WWF during Flair's? They were aligned, were they?
So they were aligned. The main thing I remember is when Hennig ended up stepping in to be Savage's partner against, was it like Flair and Razor Ramon or someone like that?
Was that like a SummerSlam?
It was supposed to be series? Warrior, and then Warrior got fired. And Hennig stepped in. And I think they had to rush it a little bit, but I do also remember that I think it's maybe the first ever Raw. They do a loser leaves town match between the two of them, and it's Flair's going back to WCW, so Hennig wins that. But I did, when I was watching it, I just kept thinking, I wish I could have seen the two of them at their physical best. Because Hennig's a bit beyond that here. If you think back to what he was in like the Bret Hart matches, if you could have got like that Hennig against Ric Flair, I think that could have been great.
Absolutely. Yep. When you see Hennig here, 97, 98, he's joined the NWO, and you just kind of, it makes you a little bit sad because you think you're just sort of seeing somebody that's not at the peak of their powers that are really, really good.
Yeah.
What do you think of this match?
I thought some of it was all right. Like, I think Flair seemed ridiculously heated and up for it, which
he did.
He didn't even do the strolling with the robe. I mean, his robe had been stolen, and Hennig had his robe on. But like the way he runs down just to start the match, and he seems so emotional and angry. And I thought, some of the interaction was okay. I've got stuff in my notes about I really wish Tony and Dusty would shut up about the Hogan situation, because they're obviously talking about it all the way through this match, and it's starting to get on my nerves. You get some of the classic stuff between the two, like the Hennig doing his neck breaker. You get, I think Flair does his over the post and stuff like that. And that, I imagine when you book this match, those are the kind of things you want to see. You want to get some of the sort of classic hits in. They told a story about, so Perfect had been involved in injuring Flair by slamming the cage door on his head at War Games, I think.
Yes. Yep.
So they'd given a bit of story and reason for Flair to be, I think, as emotional as he was going into this. And Hennig does quite a sustained attack on the head of Flair. But
I was laughing at the commentary team saying that he's concentrating on his head. It's kind of like, well, they're in a fight.
But there was always this sort of lingering thought in the back of my mind, I wish they were both just at their peak, because what a matchup it would be.
Yeah. And to think that Ric Flair's probably going to have a match next year, retiring Sting.
Oh, yeah.
A match? No, he's probably no, but, how many years ago is this? 26 years ago? And we're talking about Flair not being at his peak.
Yeah, because I'd seen something about him, because he had that, like, they publicised Ric Flair's last match, didn't they? And they did a show. But I've seen him since saying he kind of regrets doing that. And I was like, oh, no.
He's still got one more in him. He wants to die. He said before he wants to die in the ring. What better place, he said. Mental. Well, AEW is the place to do it, because they do not take care of each other there. Stick him in a match with John Moxley or something.
I mean, as a viewer, I just don't want to see anyone die in the ring.
No.
Yeah.
Remember when Frank Mir and Brock Lesnar were having their UFC rivalry, and Mir always said, I'm willing to die in there to beat Brock Lesnar. It's like, don't do that. Like, please, come on.
Yeah.
These two kind of a bit like watching a mirror image of each other at times. Certainly with the way that they go about sort of tactically wrestling a match. They're both going after each other's knees for a little while. Before that sustained work on the head is that approach is taken by Hennig. Kind of funny finish. This is quite a typical WCW finish.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're getting a straightforward match, but we can't quite get a straightforward finish. And Flair has Hennig hang up and upside down in the turnbuckles, sort of tree of woe position. He wraps the belt around his head, which I've never seen anybody do, and starts stamping on him, and the ref's had enough. He DQs him. I've also never seen, we've seen Brock Lesnar manhandle referees as they come out to try and bigger guys, but I love that Flair's just got the fist up and he's ready to just slug it out with the refs. He's really hot. I love it.
Yeah, I think they went for obviously they were going for the eye for an eye situation, return a head injury. Yeah, but I was thinking that as I've got it in my notes, I don't think I've ever seen Flair. He's very emotional, he's very wound up in the moment, but the way he was going at and threatening the refs and all that, I don't think he's normally your sort of cool, laid back guy. And yeah, that had just all gone out the window, which I don't mind. That's fine.
That was good. Eventually, the B squad of the NWO come running out, but interestingly, they don't attack Flair. They just come to the rescue of
of Hennig. So we've got Vincent and Conan. I think
I wrote C list. I think you're being kind with B.
I suppose that's probably about right. Okay, we're at the internet position again. This is with the Macho Man. He grumbles his way through this promo. He's obviously used up all his promo juice with his best wrestler alive promo from earlier. He's still saying a lot of the same things. I don't know why they did this. Maybe for time.
Yeah, I was a bit annoyed they did. Because when the last promo finished, I'm like, right, I'm ready. I'm ready for Savage. Bring it on. There was no need to have him on camera again until he was going out for his match.
There's a lot of matches on this card. I thought we must have been at the main event, but we're nowhere near. Here comes our guy. Mean Gene is standing at the top of the aisle, and he is with J.J. Dillon, the man. JJ says that the main event cage match will be going ahead, and the NWO can't weasel their way out of it. Bischoff comes sneaking up behind JJ, starts questioning his authority, and what level of stroke do you have to do this? And JJ very, very arrogantly pulls out a contract and gives it to Bischoff. Hogan and Bischoff have asked for the contract. The WCW committee have given them the contract. You would think they would be happy, but Bischoff is not happy at all.
Oh, he's pissed.
Yeah, very emotional. And it's at this point that I started thinking, and I think I texted you saying, so is this pay-per-view being built around teasing that Sting's going to be on it? And I take it Sting's not going to be on it in proper WCW fashion, but we'll get to that. And you're like, have you finished the pay-per-view yet? And I'm like, oh, okay. I'll keep watching. Okay, next match is NWO versus WCW. Scott Hall, who's accompanied by Six, versus Lex Luger. And we've got a special guest referee, Larry Zbyszko. I think that we have watched the pay-per-view. Is it the pay-per-view after this where Scott Hall's then taken on Larry Zbyszko?
It might be, yeah.
It would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I like the start of this where Hall just, Zbyszko's telling him to get rid of the toothpick, so Hall just throws it right in his face.
Hall is amazing. he's like, as soon as he walks out, he oozes cool. He just does. He's the coolest guy in the room, and it's in such an effortless way. He doesn't need to do anything. It's just there. And I think, I've got a feeling, we maybe talked about this the last time, I think he and Zbyszko go way back. Like, I think, territories, they knew each other and had worked with each other. So I was remembering that when this started as well. We've seen these two end up in a match with each other. And I don't love every match that he's in. But I always find, if Scott Hall's in it, I find something watchable there. Because he's just so good.
He does cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about the fall away slam and his discus punch sort of thing as well. He does cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't mind Larry Zbyszko, to be honest.
Yeah.
He plays a good role here. I don't know, how's it? Do we get any background as to why he's the special guest referee? No, don't we do?
I don't think so. I don't have anything written down about that.
I think at one point Zbyszko tells Six to get out of here. You're going to the back, but me just stays.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think the announcers even pick up on it. They're like, hey, send him out of there, and then, he's just there.
Some diabolical person in the crowd at one point shouts, "You dye your hair" at Lex Luger.
Oh.
That's just going to hurt his feelings.
It's a bit far. It's a bit much.
Grow up. I quite enjoyed this match, to be honest. Well, once it started to get towards the sort of end of it and all the shenanigans with Zbyszko and all that, I didn't mind it. There wasn't a lot of great wrestling on show.
Nah, I think because Bischoff comes down, doesn't he? And I think as soon as that happens, I'm like, okay. Because I was quite intrigued by, because Zbyszko had been making a big thing about how he's going to call it down the middle, and I'd been thinking, right, what's he really going to do? Because they've, I think, established him. He's definitely been on commentary and stuff like that as a WCW guy. He's going to oppose the NWO, and knowing that we have this match later, I thought, is this going to be whatever ignites the Hall and Zbyszko feud? So I was kind of looking for it. But when Bischoff came down, I get a little bit like, okay. So he's going to get
Bischoff
involved.
being involved with stuff in the ring is quite annoying, isn't it?
Yeah. And he's like distracting the ref, and I think Six kicks Luger in the head or something like that. And I think that's where the finish, isn't it? Because there's a razor's edge, and Zbyszko counts the one, counts the two. He very much plays that he does not want to count the three, but he feels he has to, so he does, and declares Hall the winner. Very, very reluctantly. And then he asks to see the replay, which, in wrestling, how many? You remember the whole stramash about the Liverpool Spurs thing? I mean, how many matches are we going to replay here?
Exactly.
If Larry's just asking to see the replay,
And is this only for Larry? Can we go back in time and change results? In kayfabe?
So he sees the kick by Six, calls them back, says he wants the match to resume. I think does Luger go straight to a torture rack for Hall?
Hall starts pushing Larry. Larry pushes him back, and he pushes him right into the torture rack.
And then you've got, I think is he just about to call for the bell, and then Six takes out Larry. Larry starts choking Six.
Yeah, he sticks him in a guillotine.
He does.
He could barely make it back up the aisle after it.
Yeah, and then Bischoff and Hall are there, and the numbers game's catching up with living legend Larry. Bischoff, like,
he's too much taekwondo stuff. Oh yeah, so he does. No, Hall counts the three for Bischoff.
Counts the three for Bischoff. Yeah. So yeah, that was this like a no contest or something? It was a bit
I
hard
wasn't
to
sure
keep track of.
if Hall had maybe. I think Hall had submitted, but yeah, I think it was no contest.
Okay.
Yeah. Stay away for the ring, Bischoff.
A bit too much, I think, for me at the end. Just a bit over the top with the shenanigans. But
yeah.
I like Hall. I like Zbyszko as well. I'd probably be curious. I think he had, like, we've seen him maybe teaming with Arn Anderson at a point, and I'd like to see more of that team. That's something I would go back and look at, I think.
Like it. That was Six's last ever WCW pay-per-view.
Okay.
And then I think he gets fired. He gets suspended, doesn't he? Because they're giving him, like when Nash and Hall come down to the ring, they're going like, shout out to my man Pac at home and all this.
Yeah.
And then he gets fired and ends up going back the night after WrestleMania.
Yeah.
14. Right. Okay. Match number 8 on the card is a sudden death match. And I was like, sudden death match? Owen Hart would be awful at that. No, it's not funny. Stop that. Macho Man, Randy Savage versus Diamond Dallas Page. NWO versus WCW again. A sudden death match appears to be a last man standing match.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No. I had no idea what the match was going to be going in until they started explaining it.
DDP's. Do you think DDP started DDP yoga because of how sore his ribs were?
Yeah, I've got that. DDP out with injured ribs. Is it my imagination, or does DDP always have injured ribs? He's always taped up. Every single match.
Like for years. Years and years.
It's worse than D'Lo Brown with the chest protector. It's worse than that.
Poor guy. I hope they're okay now. It's amazing how much DDP's went from wrestling Mark Merrow to now wrestling Randy Savage, and how elevated he's become.
Was that just the previous year? Yeah.
think so.
Or was it 2 years before?
A couple of years,
remember. Maybe. There was something that leapt out at me right at the start of this. There was a really old man in the crowd holding up an NWO sign. He's an old man with a moustache. And I was looking thinking, that's weird. It just seemed really backward to me. I was thinking, surely that's your WCW guy. That's your Ric Flair guy. That's your Horseman guy. But nah. He had his NWO sign. Weird.
Brilliant. Was it Harvey Whippleman? I need to go back and watch. I need to go back and find this guy. He's probably about 35 or something. You're describing him as an old man. It's funny seeing DDP doing a dive over the top rope. You know, he does a sort of slingshot. Mm-hmm. And that's a big man doing that. Like,
yeah.
It's easy just to sort of overlook that. He's huge. So I quite enjoyed this match. I thought it was good fun.
Yeah, I thought this was okay. It's basically a brawl. It's pretty intense. They're in the crowd fighting. I think, you know, they're out by they've got the bit with the tombstones and all that on the staging area and things like that. Although the structure of them becomes quite clear when DDP sends Savage through one of them. It must be like cardboard or something like that.
Polystyrene or something.
Yeah, it comes apart pretty easily. I enjoyed this, but there's a point. Dusty just starts ranting on about something.
Yes.
I have no idea what he was talking about, but I don't know why he was ruining the match for me.
Yeah, I don't know what he said either, but I've got "Shut Up, Dusty" in my notes. But yeah, this match was, as soon as they went into the crowd and then they were up the aisle and all that, I was thinking this is WrestleMania 10 with Crush. That's what this was reminding me of, because it's quite a similar match. I liked that Savage grabbed the camera for the video camera for the cameraman. Don't know if that was previously set up, but these are the things about Savage that you love, because the guy looked terrified.
It's one of the Crockett's. So one of the Crockett's used to be basically stayed on working as a cameraman. I think they said it's Jackie Crockett. But I did think Tony Schiavone got a wee bit carried away, because when the camera does he connect with Savage before he can do something with the camera, or does he knock it into him or something like that?
Yeah.
But the camera's looking a bit worse for wear, laying there on the mat, and I'm sure Tony Schiavone suggests it costs $100,000. You're shopping in the wrong place, Tony, if you're playing $100,000 for a camera.
Class. It's at this point that, so DDP kicks up and they both go down. And we've had a lot of 10 counts, but a lot of the time when you get a last man standing match, the continuous 10 counts can become quite monotonous, and it's just like, oh, let's get on with this. But this did not feel like this at all. Yeah. I found it's at this point it's looking like they both could be counted out. So Elizabeth comes round and she just smashes up the ref.
Yeah.
That's what Dusty was going on about. He's going on about a waitress hitting you with a tray. And then he's like, I told you. She had like a waitress tray. She smashes a sort of glass plate over the ref's head to get him to stop counting. Pretty clever. She then starts choking out DDP, much to your non-amusement, I'm guessing. But here comes Kimberly. Is that right?
Yep.
And she grabs a hold of her and grabs her by the hair and drags her to the back, basically.
Dusty gets a wee bit excited about that as well.
Can't fight! I was like, oh God, is Jerry Lawler on commentary suddenly? DDP, once they both come to, DDP does that sort of rubbish Styles Clash thing that he does, Flapjack, I think they were calling it. He gets a big comeback. He goes for the diamond cutter, which is at this point, I guess, huge and massively over. But Savage does a cool thing where he just grabs the top rope and he's going down, but he stops and DDP goes down, and Savage manages to reverse it. He does what appears to be a flying elbow, but it's more like a just sort of fall from the top rope, which is quite good. He's selling how knackered he is and how hurt he is. DDP eventually gets up from that and manages to hit the diamond cutter out of nowhere, but in performing it, he knocks down Nick Patrick, who's come out to ref after Elizabeth takes the other one out. He tries for it again. Savage hits a low blow this time again, which is great. And as he does, he hits this low blow, and Diamond Dallas Page rolls to the outside. Then fake Sting comes walking out and does a wee dunk with the baseball bat.
Yep.
And you and I were speaking about that. That must have been Hogan, because Hogan does the worst shots.
I think
with
all chair shots, bat shots, everything. Now, I get it. He's trying not to hurt the guy, and that's commendable, but they look terrible when he does them.
Hogan knows best. That spells the end. He's not getting up for that horrendous baseball bat shot, and Savage wins.
Yeah. I was thinking when I saw this, because I remember there was DDP I either read this or heard this somewhere, but he apparently loved his program with Savage. I think they went a few matches between the two of them.
Nice.
And he felt like getting the rub of working with somebody like Savage was getting him massively over. And then apparently Savage turned to him one night and said, basically, I'm going to take the diamond cutter tonight. And DDP was like, what? Are you going to kick out? He's like, no. I take the diamond cutter, I look at the lights, that's it. It's like, and he was astonished. It's like, I get to beat Macho Man with the diamond cutter. And apparently it was basically Savage's call. He was like, yeah, it's time to put him over. So
that's
I like
cool.
That. Yeah.
That's cool. I'd like to hear more stories like that about Savage and what it was like, because all you hear is that he was the same person, and I can't imagine, stories like that are just nice to hear. Yeah. Does DDP have a podcast?
He did. He stopped doing it. He had one with Jake, and now it's just Jake on his own. I think he just had too much going on by the sounds of it.
He could have called it "Is That a Rib?"
It was. That would have been so much better. I can't remember. It was called DDP's Snake Pit, and now it's just the Snake Pit.
Yeah. Oh well. I like that match. That's up there with completely different, but up there with Eddie and Ray for me.
Yeah, I'd say second best match on the card for me. Quite comfortably, I would think. I don't think there was anything to really compete with it. But I find DDP, he has got a bit more entertaining, and it's not that he's doing anything massively over the top. I think we talked before about him like finding his character, and I think it maybe is just that he's matured, he's more experienced, and he's just kind of found who he's wanting to be in the ring, and it just works now, I think.
Yeah, he's got a good presence, and he is charismatic.
Yeah.
Aye. Okay, Michael Buffer's been wheeled back out. He's ready to get the party started. He tells us that this match is a grudge match, a steel cage grudge match between Roddy Piper and Hollywood Hulk Hogan. What are you going to say?
Just had so little enthusiasm for this. Like, I was immediately thinking, all right, Buffer, big match feel. It's Piper v Hogan.
It's not though, is it? No. If they did Buffer once a year, I feel like it would have made more impact. Yeah. What's the script with the cage?
What do you mean?
Like, the cage, it's not the usual
the type of cage.
Yes, the WCW cage is... That thing looked like it was ready to go.
Yeah.
Blow over.
I think they talk about it, because I'm sure Schiavone talks about there being different types of cage, and this is I can't remember what he says, but I'm sure he's talking about it, and it made me wonder, was it always the plan that the cage looked like this, or have they had to, improvise for some reason? Because I thought it's weird that he's kind of explaining that this, I don't know, it doesn't quite look right.
I wondered if they were trying to replicate the Hell in the Cell, because there's a lot of room between the cage and the outside of the ring, because the Hell in the Cell had obviously just debuted the month before. Maybe no. And maybe it was similar to the one that Sting and them were swinging. Remember, there's like a Tarzan rope in it and all that. It's maybe the same. But yeah, two big guys climbing up and down it quite a lot in this match, and it just looks like it could go at any point.
There was a moment quite early on in this, which takes me back to something you mentioned before from earlier about there being similar move sets to what we'd seen previously. I think Hogan is the third person to do the "I am walking back down the ramp" thing. I don't need this. I don't want this. I'm sure he's the third on the night to do it. I mean, once that's fine.
Hennig definitely does it.
Yeah, I'm sure there was another.
It's funny. I'm sure that the commentators, first of all, this match is not great. And it's pretty much punch, kick, punch, kick.
Yeah.
I'm sure the commentators indicated that if you leave the cage, you would win.
They did.
Within 30 seconds of this match starting, they're both outside the cage.
Yep.
And they're starting to back. Oh, he shoved him out and all that sort of thing.
They were trying to find a way of explaining it, I think.
Yeah. I thought, to be fair to Piper, he looked in pretty good physical condition.
Yeah.
But I think that's because of that Royal Rumble that time at Madison Square Garden when he came out. And remember him and Snooker come out?
Yeah.
And he's not in great physical condition.
It wasn't good. Yeah.
This match just gets more and more bizarre as it gets towards the end, doesn't it? We get multiple Stings or men with Sting masks on appearing down the aisle through the crowd as the match goes on. They're stopping Hogan from leaving.
Mm-hmm.
The two of them spend most of the match climbing up and down the cage, punching each other. Hogan eventually gets the belt off and starts whipping on Piper. I've got his whipping him like a government mule. Shout out.
Yeah, classic.
Shout out, Jim. Yeah. There's no ref in the match. There's a ref outside.
Yeah.
Hogan hits a leg drop twice and beckons the ref in to come and count. That was weird.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're just making it up as they're going along, eh?
Yeah, I don't know that they... I don't know, do you think anyone sat in the back and said, this is going to happen, then this, then this, then this? Like, the whole thing with the Stings, because there's one Sting at first, and your sort of question is that the real Sting? Is it not the real Sting? And then a second one appears, and I'm thinking, right, maybe one of them's the real Sting, and one of them is not. And one of them's going to side with Hogan, one of them's going to try and hinder Hogan. But then, then there's just more Stings appearing. And I
think there's about 6.
Yeah, there's quite a few. And then you get another person getting themselves involved as well.
Yeah. So is that after the match is over? No.
So what have I got? So Savage ends up getting involved as well, doesn't he? So Hogan's...
Sorry, that's who I thought you were referring to, but now I understand.
All right. So Hogan smacks Piper with the title, drops the leg. Piper kicked out of that.
Oh, brother!
Really, if you're gonna have a guy kick out after a hit from the title belt and then a leg drop, go and make it somebody you can build
that
or
you
do
can
something with.
Exactly.
Make it their moment. That Savage appears, climbs the cage. Savage comes off the top, but Piper, I think, moves. Savage hits Hogan. Piper locks in the sleeper.
Oh, you've completely undersold that. Savage, that cage must be what? I think Schiavone says 25 feet in there. It's clearly not 25 feet. Say 15.
Yeah.
Say, could it be? About 15 feet in the air, and Savage jumps from the top of it doing a double axe handle, completely misses both guys. And must do damage to his knees.
Yeah, you can't land like that and not.
Jesus. And
then, that leads to the finish, which is Piper with the sleeper. Hogan's arm drops 3 times. I think as soon as I've realised this was non-title, I've thought, Piper will win this match. And you then get Savage and Piper fighting in the ring as Bischoff comes down. And then, when does the fan jump in? So
some of the Stings start getting involved. and
Yeah.
Hogan's beating up the Stings, the guy's mask comes off almost immediately.
Yeah.
It just looks ridiculous. They start handcuffing Piper, Savage and
Piper,
Hogan.
yeah.
So, handcuff Piper to the cage. And then a fan jumps out the crowd, but he's tracked by a camera the whole way.
Yeah. I found that weird. So, like, when it happened, I was thinking, could this somehow be the real Sting? But I thought, he's not big enough. He didn't look big enough to be the real Sting. But I thought, it must be somebody, because the camera's tracking. And, like, I'm just so used to, surely you cut away. You just cut away. Don't need to see this.
Yes.
Move on to someone else. But they stuck with it for quite a while.
And he scales the cage so fast.
Mm-hmm.
I think, so I've tried to read to find out. So he climbs the cage and goes for Hogan. Savage gets a hold of him, and Hogan's like, "Get him in the ring, brother!" And he starts throwing working punches at him. And we've seen videos of fans getting involved, and it's like Savage is like suddenly become the happiest kid in a sweetie shop, and he just lays the boots down. Savage isn't really doing that. I had a wee Google, and it seems like the consensus is that it was work to try and get heat on Hogan, or more heat on Hogan.
Okay.
Which makes sense because of the camera angles and the way that he came from a position where it was clearly shown on TV.
And then latterly, I think one of the fake Stings is holding the guy down. I think to
That's
make
right.
it look like that's almost like he's protecting him, but also try to stop him from doing anything further. I think it was the one that's mask came off very quickly. I think that's the guy that was holding him down. That whole thing threw me because the security then do come in, I think, and so the end of my notes is. So that's a real fan? Okay.
Yeah, it's well done, to be fair. If it is a real fan, then you would believe it. And if it's worked, then fair play. Because a lot of officials in the ring and all that, and you hear somebody shouting at Savage. They're going, Randy, like, get off him, sort of thing, and all that. So aye. Another WCW pay-per-view. We have to go, folks. And it's just like signed off. See you later.
Schiavone does it. I think it happened on TV a lot as well because Schiavone signs off his podcast with "We're out of time."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. The thing with the Stings was bizarre, right? Because I was trying to think about this, and they're supposed to be intimidating Hogan, right? Who is the heel? Mm-hmm. You would want your face to be intimidated, so surely it would make sense to have NWO members have come out and surrounded the ring, so that if Piper was trying to climb out or leave, they would stop him.
Yeah, I wonder. Like,
I know. Sorry, I'm not. Just what I was thinking, Savage comes running through them and they don't move a muscle as he comes into the ring as well.
Yeah, they didn't do anything. I always wonder when you get, like, you've obviously had your NWO be created as a group and be this huge heel faction, but then they're getting cheers because they're cool heels. It does start to get a bit messy in terms of how you tell a story when that kind of thing happens, because as you touched on, you're supposed to stack the deck against the babyface. You're supposed to make the babyface seem like they have to overcome insurmountable odds. And it is like it's Hogan who's having to try and overcome odds here.
And also, Piper's not like a sympathetic face either.
No. I mean, I imagine a lot of the folk who would have been invested in this would have probably watched the early WrestleManias with the Hogan and Piper interaction where Piper was this despicable heel.
And it's turned in his head.
Which he was, I think, miles better at than whatever it is he's trying to be here.
Yeah. It's odd to have him, like you said, to have him kick out of a double leg drop and a belt shot as well. And I was
Imagine
going to
you'd
say,
done
you're
that
not
with
really... Go on.
Imagine you'd done that with Eddie Guerrero or something like that. Just imagine.
They had the opportunity to do it with Sting at the next pay-per-view and completely made an arse of it.
Oh, no.
Because he wasn't looking tan enough, brother.
So that's the next pay-per-view. So, oh, God, where are we heading?
I think that's the next pay-per-view. Fairly sure it is, because that's Bret Hart's debut and
That's
all
the
that.
ref for... No, the guy that comes down to say, this doesn't happen again, type thing.
But it wasn't a quick count or anything.
Yeah. Oh, what a shit show.
So, yeah. There we were. In hindsight, it wasn't a bad pay-per-view.
We had
There's
a couple
been
of good
worse.
matches. We had an excellent match. We had, I think, another very good match. We got to see some cool stuff like Scott Hall doing his stuff, doing classic Scott Hall stuff. Yeah, there were some moments.
Now, shall I consult the 98 card, or would you like a surprise?
I think you need to consult it because I think you have said to me that this card is maybe one of the reasons we stopped our 1998 journey.
Simply because of Warrior. I'm fairly sure this is Warrior. Oh, yes. Unbelievably, it's not the main event.
Oh, good.
There's some alright looking stuff on it, but then we've seen stuff look good on paper before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Especially with WCW. Schiavone, Heenan, and Mike Tenay. Goodbye, Dusty.
Okay.
So here's your card. World Television Title match: Chris Jericho versus Raven.
Okay.
Wrath versus Meng.
Who was Wrath again?
Check.
Was Wrath a person?
Wrath. Adam Bomb.
Oh, okay.
Brian Clark.
I won't get too excited. Okay.
Juventud versus Disco Inferno. God, I mean, they're just packing everybody. Fit Finlay versus Alex Wright.
Oh, he's back.
He's back. Lodi versus Saturn.
Okay.
This was the whole thing, like Saturn was feuding with the whole flock, remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
Cruiserweight match. Kidman versus Disco Inferno.
Are you telling me Disco Inferno's in 2 matches on this card?
Apparently so, doubling up. World Tag Team Title match, the NWO Hollywood, Scott Steiner and the Giant versus Buff Bagwell and Rick Steiner.
Okay.
Then we go into a Rick Steiner versus Scott Steiner no DQ match.
Intriguing. Okay.
This is Rick Steiner's like S&M era.
Okay.
Remember, he's wearing really questionable leather collars and stuff.
That's going to be fun.
Singles match: Kevin Nash versus Scott Hall.
Ah.
This is going to be an absolute feast of nonsense, this pay-per-view. United States heavyweight title match: Bret Hart versus Sting.
Okay.
Good. Singles match: The Warrior versus Hollywood Hogan.
Brilliant.
And WCW World Heavyweight title match: Goldberg, the champion, versus DDP.
Oh, I think I've heard a story about that match.
Oh. Is it worth sharing, or shall we wait?
It doesn't spoil anything about the match.
All right.
I think it didn't end in time, and the pay-per-view audience were cut off.
They showed up Nitro the next night or something.
Yep.
We gotta go, folks.
We're desperately out of time. We gotta go.
Class. That sounds like a lot of matches.
That did sound like a lot of... Like, the one we just watched sounded like a lot of matches, or felt like a lot of matches, but I think that sounded like even more.
12 matches. What are you doing to us?
12.
Do you know
I bet a lot of them will be pretty short, I would think.
And 2 of them at least sound like they might go from one match into the other, possibly.
Yeah.
I'm quite looking forward to 99 and 2000 because they're sort of like unknowns. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they'll likely be awful, but there might be little bits and pieces that are nice on them, that are good on them.
Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking are we going to get like any kind of spotlight on, the likes of Guerrero, Benoit, the guys that moved on? Because I think maybe I know they move on fairly soon, but I think they'd still be there for the next one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Interesting, none of them are on that. I said Jericho, didn't I? Yeah, Jericho Raven.
Yeah.
Film-wise, we were going to watch the original version of The Ring. Is it called Ring?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
That was 1998. I've never seen that.
Yeah, I've never seen it. So I've seen the American Hollywood version, which was fine, but I imagine this is better. Just assume it will be.
Because it's got subtitles in that.
Just, I think...
The original?
I think it'll just be a bit darker. A bit creepier.
Yeah. No, that should be good.
Yeah.
So as long as that's decent, then we can offset that against Warrior and his snorting and...
No, I wasn't even thinking of the fact there'll be promos in there. I was just thinking of the actual in-ring.
The One Warrior Nation, OWN. I wonder if he came up with that all on his own.
A lot of matches, you hear them and you think maybe it'll be better than we think, but I'm pretty sure this is widely considered to be one of the worst matches ever.
Yes, I can't wait. Maybe we could double it up and watch WrestleMania 5, 6. No, 6. Let's throw WrestleMania 6 in there as well.
The original Hogan Warrior, which was actually good. It's a good match. And
we've spoken about this before, though. It's good. It's a good spectacle.
It's a good spectacle. Yeah, I mean, it's not a classic wrestling match, but it's a good spectacle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think this will be the same.
We'll look forward to it with positivity and enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in 2 weeks' time, we shall discuss that. 12 matches. Unbelievable. Oh, well. Well, you take it easy.
You too.
And keep away from that pesky COVID.
Yeah, I'm all vaccinated up now. Today,
good.
Boosters, everything.
All
good.
You? So you'll be back down tomorrow. Take it down tomorrow. Cool. Take it easy. We'll speak in 2 weeks, okay?
Cheers.
Cheers.